Welcome to Mind Decoded, where we explore the psychology behind human behavior. Let's decode today's topic. You've accomplished real things. You have credentials, achievements, evidence of competence. But you feel like a fraud. You're convinced you've fooled everyone. Eventually, they'll discover you don't actually know what you're doing. You'll be exposed. This feeling has a name: imposter syndrome. And psychologists Pauline, Clance and Suzanne Imes discovered that it disproportionately affects high achievers. The more successful you are, the more intense the feeling that you don't deserve it. Your achievements don't prove competence to you. They prove you're good at faking it. Here's what imposter syndrome actually is. It's the persistent belief that your success is due to luck, timing, or deceiving others rather than your own ability and effort. You discount evidence of competence. When you succeed, you attribute it to external factors. When you fail, you attribute it to internal inadequacy. Psychologist Pauline Clance developed the imposter phenomenon scale and found that 70% of people experience imposter feelings at some point. But for some people, it's not occasional self-doubt. It's a constant, intrusive belief that they're fraudulent. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. This content is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered medical, psychological, or mental health advice. If you're experiencing mental health concerns, please consult with a qualified mental health professional. The paradox is that imposter syndrome correlates with achievement. Psychologist Basima Tewfik's research shows that people with imposter feelings often perform better than their peers. They're not actually less competent. They're often more competent. They prepare more. They work harder. They seek feedback more actively. The feeling of being an imposter drives compensatory effort. You think you're faking it, so you over-prepare to avoid being caught. This over-preparation makes you genuinely competent. But you still attribute your success to the extra work, not to your ability. The syndrome persists despite evidence. There are 5 subtypes of imposter syndrome. Psychologist Valerie identified these patterns. The perfectionist. Your standards are impossibly high. Anything less than perfect feels like failure. Even excellent work feels inadequate to you. The superhuman. You believe you should excel at everything effortlessly. If you struggle or need help, you feel like a fraud. The natural genius. You believe competent people succeed easily on first try. When you need practice or make mistakes, you conclude you lack talent. The soloist. You believe asking for help proves you're incompetent. You should be able to do everything alone. The expert. You believe you should know everything before starting. Any knowledge gap makes you feel like a fraud. These patterns create impossible standards that guarantee you'll feel inadequate. Attribution errors fuel imposter syndrome. Psychologist Weiner's attribution theory explains this. When you succeed, you attribute it to unstable, external factors. I got lucky. The task was easy. The standards were low. When you fail, you attribute it to stable, internal factors. I'm not smart enough. I don't have talent. This attribution pattern means success never updates your self-perception. Failure confirms you're inadequate. Success is dismissed as not really counting. You're gathering evidence in a biased way that maintains the belief you're an imposter. Early experiences shape imposter patterns. Psychologist Dweck's research on praise shows that children praised for intelligence rather than effort develop fragile self-concepts. You're so smart becomes your identity. When tasks become difficult, you interpret struggle as evidence you're not actually smart. You were praised for outcomes, not process. So you believe outcomes should come easily. When they don't, you feel like a fraud. Similarly, children in families with high achievers sometimes develop imposter syndrome. Your sibling was valedictorian. Your parent is accomplished. Your achievements feel inadequate by comparison. You internalize that you're not as capable. Even when you achieve objectively impressive things, they don't feel impressive to you. Minority stress amplifies imposter syndrome. Psychologist Cokley's research shows that imposter feelings are higher among people from underrepresented groups in their field. If you're the only woman in the engineering department or the only person of color in the executive suite, you face additional pressure. Stereotype threat makes you hyper-aware that some people might doubt your competence based on your identity. This awareness creates anxiety about confirming stereotypes. You feel like your failures will reflect on your entire group. You internalize the scrutiny. Even strong performance feels like it won't be enough to overcome bias. The imposter feeling intensifies. Comparison is poison for imposter syndrome. Social media and professional networks create constant exposure to others' curated successes. Psychologist Leon Festinger's social comparison theory shows that people evaluate themselves by comparing to others. When you see peers' accomplishments, you compare their highlight reel to your behind-the-scenes struggle. They look effortlessly successful. You know how hard you worked. You conclude they're naturally talented and you're barely keeping up. You don't see their struggles, doubts, and failures. The comparison is asymmetric. It makes you feel inadequate even when you're equally accomplished. Imposter syndrome and Dunning-Kruger effect are opposites. The Dunning-Kruger effect means incompetent people overestimate their ability. Imposter syndrome means competent people underestimate their ability. Psychologist David Dunning notes this ironic mismatch. The people who should feel confident don't. The people who should feel uncertain don't. Imposter syndrome happens because competent people have enough metacognitive ability to recognize what they don't know. This awareness of knowledge gaps makes them feel inadequate. Incompetent people lack metacognitive ability, so they don't recognize their gaps. They feel confident. Awareness of your limitations is actually a sign of competence. But it feels like proof of fraud. The achievement cycle maintains imposter syndrome. Psychologist Pauline Clance describes this pattern. You feel like an imposter. To avoid being discovered, you overwork. You succeed because of the overwork. But you attribute the success to overwork, not ability. You think if you work normally, you'd fail. So next time, you overwork again. Success reinforces the belief that you need to overwork to avoid exposure. The syndrome strengthens despite continued success. You never test whether you could succeed with normal effort. You're trapped in an exhausting cycle of over-preparation that prevents you from discovering you're actually competent. Here's what doesn't help with imposter syndrome. More achievements don't help. You already have achievements. They didn't convince you. Additional achievements will be dismissed the same way. External validation doesn't help. When people tell you you're competent, you think they're being polite or they don't know the real you. You discount praise. Reassurance doesn't help. It provides momentary relief but doesn't change the underlying belief pattern. These interventions address symptoms, not the cognitive distortions creating the syndrome. What does help is reattribution training. Psychologist Martin Seligman's work on explanatory style shows that changing how you explain success and failure changes emotional outcomes. When you succeed, deliberately attribute it to internal, stable factors. I worked hard. I have skills. I made good decisions. When you fail, attribute it to external or unstable factors. The circumstances were difficult. I didn't have needed information. I can improve next time. This feels unnatural at first. Your brain resists. But consistent reattribution practice weakens imposter syndrome over time. You're training your brain to update beliefs based on evidence. Sharing imposter feelings reduces their power. Psychologist Valerie Young found that when people realize imposter feelings are common, the feelings lose intensity. You thought you were uniquely fraudulent. Learning that accomplished peers feel the same way breaks the illusion. You realize the feeling doesn't reflect reality. It reflects a common cognitive distortion. Talking openly about imposter feelings with trusted colleagues or mentors normalizes the experience. You discover that people you admire also doubt themselves. This doesn't eliminate imposter feelings, but it reduces their credibility. Documenting evidence of competence provides concrete counterexamples to imposter beliefs. Psychologist Barbara Markway recommends keeping a success file. Positive feedback, completed projects, problems solved, evidence that contradicts the fraud belief. When imposter feelings intensify, review the file. Your brain will try to dismiss each item. That was luck. They were just being nice. Anyone could have done that. Anticipate these dismissals. Actively counter them. This project succeeded because of my decisions. This feedback reflects my actual work quality. This achievement required specific skills I have. The practice of consciously countering dismissals weakens automatic negative attributions. Understanding that imposter syndrome is a cognitive distortion, not reality, changes your relationship with the feelings. The feeling that you're a fraud is strong. But feelings aren't facts. You can feel like an imposter and simultaneously be genuinely competent. These aren't contradictory. One is subjective experience. One is objective reality. Imposter syndrome means your internal experience doesn't match external evidence. The error isn't in the evidence. The error is in how your brain processes the evidence. When you understand this, you can acknowledge the feeling without believing it. Yes, I feel like a fraud. And the evidence shows I'm competent. Both can be true. Over time, trusting evidence over feelings reduces the power of imposter syndrome. And that's how the mind works. If this helped you understand yourself better, subscribe for weekly psychology insights. Thanks for watching.